The Moon in the Dark, written by Tatsuro. Chapter 4, Standing. Toriel had lost all track of time as she held her daughter close to her, letting her into her heart. In this moment, she didn't need anything else. With her child in her arms, she found joy she had long forgotten. She found she wanted to scoop Luna up into her arms and cradle her, rocking her to sleep and carrying her home and let nothing hurt her ever again. She would have acted on that had Luna's stomach not chosen that moment to grumble.
"Mommy, I hungry."
Luna looked up at her pleadingly, rubbing her tummy with one hoof. Chuckling, Toriel pulled a spider donut from her pocket and gave it to Luna.
"Here, this will tide you over until dinner time."
Smiling widely, Luna eagerly devoured the pastry.
"It's yummy,"
she said happily, her wings buzzing with delight. Toriel smiled as she got to her feet, Luna dancing happily around her. For a brief moment, Toriel brought her hand to her chest. She'd felt the surge of determination sweep through her and knew just how dangerous that was for monsters, even a boss monster like her. In very small quantities, it could help monsters grow, increasing magical power without increasing love. Too much at once, however, could damage a monster's soul. Her friend from beyond the door had told her a scientist had been studying ways that monsters could use determination, but that the research reports had just stopped one day. Closing her eyes, Toriel ran through a few mental magic exercises, burning off the excess magical energy that determination had filled her with until it was at more reasonable levels. With a smile, she then led Luna through to the next chamber. Luna happily followed Toriel into the next chamber. She immediately noticed that the chamber was incredibly long, stretching off into the distance until it vanished into blurs. She glanced up eagerly at Toriel, waiting for the next instruction.
"Luna,"
Toriel began, her voice soft and loving.
"While I wish I could be with you every moment to take care of you, there may be times when I can't, when we'll be apart. I need to know you'll be able to handle that."
She gestured forward, beginning to walk further into the room.
"So to know you can show that independence, I want you to cross this room without me."
Turning, Toriel continued deeper into the room, seeming to vanish to Luna's vision.
"Mommy?"
Luna called worriedly, immediately racing ahead to try and catch up to her. As she rushed through the room, she noticed several strings of ivy climbing the walls, spaced evenly and growing to different heights. As these heights seemed to repeat, Luna began to worry that the room had some sort of looping enchantment she had triggered somehow, and she'd be running forever. Her worries proved unfounded, however. It was a relief when she saw the exit to the chamber and a pillar to one side between two columns of ivy. Seeing something behind the pillar, she leapt glomping into Toriel's knee.
"Mommy, I did it!"
Toriel chuckled as she scooped Luna up and carried her back out from behind the pillar.
"Yes, you did, Luna. I'm so proud of you."
Stepping to the arching portal to the next chamber, she set Luna down.
"Now I want you to do something for me. Can you wait here for me? There's something I want to go take care of. A surprise I want to prepare for you. It might take me some time though. Can you handle waiting for me here without me?"
Luna thought about that for a time.
"But what if I get lonely?"
she whimpered. Smiling, Toriel handed over a strange boxy device, showing Luna how to flip it open to reveal buttons with labels she couldn't read.
"This is a cell phone,"
Toriel explained.
"With it, you can contact me anytime for any reason."
She gestured to the 3 buttons in order.
"Push these 3 buttons and it will call my cell phone. If it rings, you can push this one to receive my call."
She pointed to the 3rd button.
"Understand?"
Luna nodded.
"I can do it,"
she proclaimed happily.
"But what if I have to go to the bathroom?"
Toriel chuckled. "Well, if you feel you do need to leave the room for any reasons to move forward." Reaching into her bag, she pulled out a large folded parchment.
"Here is a map of the ruins. Each chamber with a puzzle also has recorded a clue that will let you solve it."
She paused.
Oh right, you cannot read our writing. Can you read yours? Uh-huh.
Luna agreed proudly.
I'm smart.
Chuckling, Toriel placed her hand on Wuna's forehead and her other hand on the folded map. Wuna felt magic flowing from her head and into the parchment.
Take a look now,
Toriel offered. Unfolding the map, Wuna gasped.
It's in my letters!
She cried happily.
I can read it!
Toriel smiled gently.
It's just a basic translation spell,
she offered modestly.
If you feel the need to leave this chamber, the map will guide you now.
Wuna smiled happily as she folded the map up.
How do I carry this?
She asked worriedly. Toriel thought for a time, then reached into her pockets for fabric, needles and thread. With quick, deft movements aided by magic, Toriel sewed up a pair of saddlebags for Wuna, resting them over her back just behind her wings.
There we go. You can put anything you find in there as long as there's room.
Smiling, Wuna reached under her wings and pulled out the pouch of bits she'd brought with her, where she'd placed the 2 gold coins the froggen had left her, out from between her feathers, and dropped it into one of the bags, slipping the map and cell phone into the other. She looked up at Toriel with a happy smile, feeling prepared for anything. Toriel smiled down at her.
Alright then, Wuna. Stay safe. I'll be right back.
Turning, she left the chamber. Wuna happily waited for Toriel to return. After a time, the cell phone rang. Remembering what Toriel said, Wuna quickly pulled the phone out and pressed the button.
Mommy?
She asked eagerly. A quiet voice, barely audible, emitted from one part of the device.
Mommy, I can't hear you!
Wuna called louder, worried.
Is the cell phone broken?
The voice came louder this time, but all Wuna was able to make out was ear. Confused, Wuna lowered her head to the phone, putting her ear to where the voice was coming from.
Mommy?
She called worriedly.
I'm terribly sorry, Wuna,
Toriel said through the phone.
I forgot to tell you that you have to hold the phone to your cheek with your ear and mouth in range of the 2 grills.
Oh, Wuna breathed, holding the phone to her cheek with her hooves.
That's why I couldn't hear you.
Toriel chuckled softly.
Anyway, I was calling to tell you that my errands are taking longer than I thought. I shouldn't be more than another 5 minutes though. Okay,
Wuna replied happily.
I love you, Mommy.
I love you too, Wuna. Toriel replied, her voice thick. Stay safe.
You too.
After a moment, Toriel spoke again.
I forgot to tell you how to hang up the phone, didn't I? You can do it either by closing it back up or pressing the red button opposite the green one you used to receive my call. Thanks, Mommy.
Wuna replied happily, closing the phone. Wuna waited a while longer, only for Toriel to call again.
Wuna, I'm afraid I'll be delayed a bit longer.
Toriel apologized.
I found what I was looking for, but before I could take it, it was snatched away by a small white puppy.
In a murmur, Toriel continued.
How odd. Do dogs even like flour? To play in, maybe.
Wuna offered. Perhaps. Toriel allowed. After a time, Wuna's phone rang again. When she picked up, however, she only heard heavy panting followed by a couple of high-pitched barks. In the distance, she heard Toriel calling.
Come back here with my cell phone!
Realizing what had happened, Wuna set her cell phone on the ground and took a deep breath. Wuna used Royal Canterlot's voice.
Doggy!
She shouted. Toriel's eyes widened as she saw the little white doggy go tumbling from the force of the shout.
Give Mommy back her phone!
Yelping, the little puppy raced back to return the phone and flower to Toriel. She smiled as she picked up the phone.
Thank you for that, Wuna.
she said into the phone.
Happy to help, Ma.
Wuna's voice was cut off in a scared gasp. Wuna? Toriel called worriedly. Wuna, what's wrong? Wuna stared back at the entrance to the long chamber. She could barely make out the details, but there was a flower there that wasn't there before. She could see the white center, the golden petals. She saw the light glinting of the teeth in the grin.
Ah!
She screamed in terror, racing into the next chamber.
Mommy, the bad flower's chasing me!
The bad flower? Toriel asked in confusion from over the phone.
The one that hurt me!
Wuna whimpered, ducking into the friendly embrace of a frogget that was on the other side of the doorway she just dashed through. Wuna, listen to me. Toriel explained. I want you to keep going. On the map you'll see a house marked. Meet me there. Plot your course carefully and do not backtrack unless you can't avoid it. Above all, be careful, alright?
Okay, Mommy.
Wuna whimpered, shivering in the frogget's embrace.
I know you're scared, Wuna.
Toriel reassured her softly.
But I'm too far away to make it there in time to help you. I need you to be brave for me.
Wuna nodded.
Okay, Mommy.
She replied back.
I love you.
I love you too, Wuna. I'll call frequently to make sure you're okay. Hanging up, Wuna got back to her hooves.
Okay.
She whispered.
I can do this.
As she got ready to leave, the frogget hopped into the room to the north and came back with a piece of candy for her. Smiling, Wuna slipped it into her bag.
Thank you,
she said gratefully, nuzzling the frogget. As Wuna moved onward, she encountered a strange monster that looked to her like a sock puppet with tiny wings. As the fight began, the name above the creature was Winsome. As Wuna watched the Winsome, she noticed just how scared it was. Smiling, Wuna sat down to let the Winsome see her peaceable intent. After a time, the Winsome left of its own accord. While Wuna regretted not being able to befriend it, she knew she couldn't waste too much time. As she entered the next short chamber, she glanced at the map. Seeing that the center of the room was pit traps, Wuna buzzed her wings, managing to hover over the center to continue onward. In the next chamber, Wuna paused as she received a call from Toriel. Are you doing well, Wuna? She asked worriedly.
2 chambers onward,
Wuna replied.
I'm okay.
That's good, Toriel replied. For no particular reason, do you prefer cinnamon or butterscotch?
I love them together,
Wuna replied happily.
Tastes so yummy.
Toriel chuckled. That is good to know, dear. The chamber she was in was blocked by a path of spikes. There was also a rock near a discolored floor tile. Since the map mentioned pushing rocks, Wuna attempted to push the rock onto the discolored tile, however the rock didn't move.
Mommy did not think this through,
Wuna muttered. She sat and stared at the rock, trying to figure out how to do this. As she was sitting, a frogget engaged her in a fight. She smiled at the frogget.
Can you help me push the walk?
She asked, pointing.
It's too heavy for me.
The frogget stared at her for a time. However, seeing no hostility or deception, it nodded in agreement, pushing the rock for her. Once it was on the tile, the spikes dropped.
Thank you,
Wuna called gratefully, giving the frogget a peck on the cheek, causing it to croak in embarrassment as its cheeks turned red. Giggling, Wuna progressed into the next room. The next chamber was nearly covered with cracked floor tiles. Looking at the map, Wuna saw 2 images of the chamber, one above and one below. Reading the clue, it stated,
Don't step on the leaves.
The lower chamber was nearly covered with leaves, except for a narrow path. Looking carefully, Wuna followed that path over the floor tiles, and none cracked beneath her hooves. The next chamber contained 3 more rocks and discolored tiles. However, the lowest rock seemed different from the others. Approaching it, Wuna began examining it. "What are you looking at?" the rock demanded. Wuna was surprised to hear the rock talk, but she rallied gamely.
I never saw such a hefty chunk of stone outside the mountainous cliffs.
The rock shifted back and forth, preening. "Well, I am pretty strong," it bragged.
I bet you could even push the other rocks on the switches and hold them down so I could cross.
Wuna offered. The rock eagerly pushed the other two onto the switches before stopping on its own. "Behold my power," it proclaimed as the spikes went down.
That's amazing,
Wuna proclaimed as she crossed.
Thank you.
Waving happily to the talking rock, she moved on to the next chamber. As she continued, she encountered a trio of bulbous monsters identified as Moldsmalls. They lay immobile, not seeming to do anything. Wuna decided to do the same in an attempt to show her understanding of them. The Moldsmalls shook a bit of water off of their bodies, but Wuna had laid out of reach of it. After a time, the Moldsmalls withdrew into the ground, leaving a gold coin apiece behind. Glad to have made friends, Wuna continued onward. In the next chamber, Wuna found a table with cheese on it and a mouse hole. She could see the mouse staring at the cheese, plainly building up the courage to go snatch some. Seeing the mouse's struggle, Wuna felt brave enough to continue onward. In the next chamber, Wuna found a ghost pretending to sleep on a pile of leaves. She wanted to make it more comfortable with her, so she curled up beside it on the leaves. The ghost looked at her. What are you doing?" he asked nervously as a fight began, the name Napstablook appearing over his head.
Being friendly?
Luna offered. You really want to be friends?" Napstablook asked worriedly.
Of course.
Wuna replied.
I told Mommy I would befriend every monster in the ruins.
Napstablook chuckled a little. "You're kinda cute."
You too.
Wuna replied eagerly. "Hey, let me show you something." Focusing his energy, Napstablook caused his magical energy, which manifested as tears, to rise up above his head and take shape as a top hat. "I call it Dapperblook. Do you like it?" Wuna nodded eagerly.
Let me try.
Thinking quickly, she pulled out the map of the ruins and folded it into a hat she placed on her head. Wuna equipped Cartographer's cap.
Like it?
Wuna asked. "It's adorable." Napstablook replied as the fight lines of the fight faded. "I normally come to the ruins because nobody's around, but today I met somebody nice." Smiling widely, Wuna attempted to hug Napstablook, only to fall through him.
Oof.
Chuckling, Napstablook settled around Wuna, wrapping her completely in his ectoplasmic form. "Here, have a Blook hug." Wuna snuggled into the ghostly embrace, the gentle friendship filling her with determination. I hope you all enjoyed this next chapter of The Moon in the Dark, and if you did, hit that like button and subscribe, and here is your daily dose of brainwashing!
Softness noise and Thursday. Wherever play we heard it. Sounds off from floor not play we heard it. Hela matjam was off maskin ne bjarkstus.
Bye!